5 reasons people get divorced. That's the primary topic today. I'm John Henderson with Henderson Law, and today we're talking about these reasons for divorce. I'm going to briefly give you an overview of those big 5 ticket items that cause divorce, and then we're going to talk about them more specifically. So the first is substance abuse. Second is physical abuse, and sometimes emotional abuse. We'll talk about the difference. Third, adultery. Fourth, financial problems. And fifth, poor communication and fighting. These are the things and the reasons people come to us for divorce. We hear hundreds of different clients contact us each year regarding their divorces, and these are the 5 most common reasons people do get divorced. Let's take them one by one and see what we can figure out, why these things happen and what we can do to assist. The first is substance abuse problems. Anytime we're dealing with substance abuse problems, there's usually some of these other issues involved as well. Somebody heavy drinking, obviously illegal drugs, but sometimes it can be less obvious substance abuse problems, like somebody's been taking ADHD medication for a very long time. That has caused a spiraling effect of other things to go on in their life. Now they're taking some sort of hormone treatment or something else that is going on as well, or they're not sleeping very well. Prescription drugs are another thing that go on with people's lives as well. But we see these substance abuse problems intervening in people's marriages a lot. In fact, I would say a very, very high percentage of divorces and calls that we get relate to these substance abuse issues. They vary in the way that you handle them. Sometimes there's what's called habitual drunkenness. In South Carolina, we have habitual drunkenness, and that is a fault ground for divorce. More on that in just a few minutes. But generally speaking, they can be very obvious, and so it warrants the divorce based on that, and that's the reason solely for the breakup of the marriage. But most often, substance abuse problems are just lurking in the background, maybe causing some other issues. Just think about that they can cause adultery. Substance abuse problems can cause poor communication and fighting. It can lead to and cause many of these other things. Financial problems as well. Substance abuse problems are lurking in the background of many, many cases that we deal with. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second one is when we are dealing with abuse, there's a difference between physical abuse and emotional abuse. Now, in states like South Carolina and in many other states, there's only a recognized fault-based divorce based on physical abuse. Emotional abuse, however, can be just as horrible as the physical abuse. So with regard to the physical abuse, if you've got police reports or witness statements or anything like that, you can file for a divorce, a fault-based divorce based on that. The abuser, the spouse that is doing the abusing, is the one that is the reason for the breakup of the marriage, and you can label them at fault during the divorce. If it's an emotional abuse issue, then you're not going to be able to use that as a fault ground. You're going to have to do a no-fault divorce, unreconcilable differences, that type of divorce, because it's very hard to prove. Emotional abuse is very obvious and exists, and judges can see it, and lawyers can see it. Defining when it is actually the reason for the breakup of the marriage is a very gray area, and so the law in South Carolina does not go into that. It just says that emotional abuse is not a fault ground for divorce. But emotional abuse, a narcissist always gaslighting somebody else, we hear that kind of thing a lot, is an example of the emotional abuse that can lead to the breakdown of a marriage. Now, our third one is adultery. Now, adultery is the third reason that people get divorced. And everyone knows what this is. A married man and a woman, somebody strays outside the marriage and engages in a sexual relationship with somebody outside of the marriage. It's very obvious that this is a reason people often cannot reconcile or get back together once somebody has cheated and gone beyond the marriage. So that is one of the reasons for a breakup of a marriage as well. And even to the extent that people try to work it out, a lot of times there are significant trust issues that go on. Now the other spouse is less trusting, and that causes communication issues as well. And then let's deal with the fourth issue, which is financial problems. Now, the financial problems could be in a variety of different ways. It could be because somebody has a gambling addiction, or somebody is wasting money just on frivolous shopping habits, something like that. That somebody is just a business owner trying to make a play, and then they end up having to file bankruptcy, and now you've got a significant change in life comforts going on in a household, and that causes a lot of fighting as well, could lead to substance abuse problems. But financial hardship and financial problems, shifting around money in ways that the spouse doesn't approve of, is something that causes a lot of problems. Typically, what we see is that there will be one person who is very financially irresponsible. Again, that could be because of gambling, or that they're engaged in some business activities that are extraordinarily risky and they lose a lot of money. And the other one is a little more prudent with their finances. And this just causes huge amounts of strife in a marriage, and it's very difficult to get over those. So getting on the right page financially is one way to win in a marriage, but we often see finances as a huge reason for divorce. And then finally, communication and fighting. And this you will see all over the internet. Bad communication leads to fighting, the inability to negotiate with each other, the inability to communicate with each other. One person holding secrets, or one person failing to communicate to the other spouse, and then that happens vice versa, and people fight, and that becomes a significant issue in the marriage. And so that's the fifth reason people end up getting divorced. Now, there could be other reasons outside of this, but I do want to address one more issue in here, is that there's a difference between at-fault divorce, where one party is at fault for the breakup of the marriage, and a no-fault divorce. Nobody is at fault. Both people recognize that they have irreconcilable differences, and they decide to get divorced. In South Carolina, you have to be separated for a year before you can get that final divorce. We will address that more in another video. But for purposes of this one, I want you to recognize that of these 5 reasons people get divorced, the first 3 that I mentioned, substance abuse, physical abuse, and the adultery charge, is a fault ground for divorce. For any of those 3 reasons, you can label the other person at fault for the breakup of the marriage, and that is a fault-based divorce. Everything else would be a no-fault divorce. Last thing for you to notice about these 5 reasons people get divorced is that we observe that usually there's more than one in play at any given time. So if somebody has a drinking problem, they also have a fighting with their spouse problem. Or if somebody has an adultery problem, maybe some money is missing outside of the marriage because they're spending it on their significant other, the paramour, or whatever the reason is. But usually there's more than one of these things going on, even if it's a fault-based thing going on. And you can even have all of these things going on. So you can see this sort of cascading effect. When one of these things becomes a major issue, usually 1 or 2 or more of the other issues become a problem as well in a marriage. So if you or a friend or family member or anybody is struggling with any of these things, and you feel like your marriage is coming to an end and you want some advice as to what to do, we are happy to have a talk with you to see if we can jump in and help. But more importantly, we want to do whatever we can to help provide you with the tools and resources necessary. Now, please remember that these are South Carolina specific rules that we discuss on this channel, and that every circumstance is very fact specific. So we can't guarantee results, and we can't tell you what's going on in other states. But to the extent that your issues have to do with the issues discussed on this channel, we hope that you find this information informative and helpful for whatever your needs are. I'm John Henderson with HH Law. Thanks for watching.